Meghan McCain appeared on Seth Meyers' late night show, and it was a contentious 11 minutes, I'm gonna be honest. And it was especially contentious because the topic had to do with Representative Ilhan Omar, a woman who Meghan McCain has had an on-air meltdown over already. So how did this conversation go? Take a look.
I'm calling out what I see as anti-Semitic language, and when you're talking about,
but even after you called it out after she'd apologized for it, I do want to establish the timeline. Differences in Israeli policy without getting framed as anti-Semitic language.
Yeah, I just think you can't talk about Jews hypnotizing the world, talking about all about the Benjamins.
You keep bringing up the 2 tweets that she's apologized for, and I think that's a little unfair to her, especially because we've established.
Are you her publicist?
What?
Are you her press person?
No, I'm just someone who cares about the fact that there's someone out there who is in a minority, who has had death threats against her, and I think that we should all use the same language that you're asking her to be careful about her language, and I would ask everybody else to be careful about theirs.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, so that's Meghan McCain, who is not Jewish, lecturing Seth Meyers about anti-Semitism, who parts of his family are Jewish. So it's okay, you don't have to be Jewish to be concerned about anti-Semitism, and not every Jew is great on the issue. So I'm not saying she doesn't have a right to say it, but there is a little awkwardness here as she's telling him what he should be concerned about. And when he says, on the other hand, she's apologized, etc., she's like, no, not good enough. Okay, that's interesting context.
So there's more. Let's take a look at the second part of the conversation.
Are you bothered by her language about 9/11?
I thought it was taken out of context, and I think if you watch that whole
speech. Would you give President Trump the same leverage if he had said the same thing?
Well, I would say that Donald Trump is certainly in no position to criticize her language on 9/11 based on the things that he said about 9/11, right?
But would you give, I just think you have to give people the same credence, and I think
well, let me make the clarification between Donald Trump and Ilhan Omar is one of them has apologized and said they're gonna try to do better and they're gonna be educated by people who know about this. That's what she said, and I think she, you know, it's an interesting thing when we have 2 Muslim women for the first time, they do have a different perspective on things. And I think when we talk about the idea of like, let's all try to meet in the middle on things, we have to listen to other people's perspective. And
oh, I agree, I work on The View with Joy Behar every day.
Man, she really doesn't like Joy Behar.
Yeah, that's because Joy Behar is progressive and really smart.
Yeah.
So just in case you're not aware, Donald Trump has said many despicable things about 9/11. Including bragging that he had the tallest building after 9/11.
That's right.
That's unbelievable. Making up a story about how Muslims celebrated 9/11 and he saw it with his own eyes, not true. But I think probably the worst of all is he pretended that he sent hundreds of workers to help with cleanup when he never did. He is a despicable guy. Whereas Ilhan Omar said something happened on 9/11. How are those two the same thing? So I don't even know what's wrong with saying something happened on 9/11. I mean, she's referred to it probably dozens, if not hundreds of times. That one time she referred to it that way. It's a made up controversy. And Meghan McCain does that in order to protect Republicans and call everything even.
Right.
She's not protecting Trump. She doesn't like Trump only because he attacked her dad, right? But she covers the ass of every other Republican in this context.
But I mean, look, in the context of the conversation she had on the show, it's clear that she is sticking up for Trump. Right, and she sticks up for Trump on The View, which blows my mind.
You know why? Sorry, Anna, you're absolutely right. Especially when you equate the things that Trump has done with what Ilhan Omar said about 9/11. It makes no sense to any rational human being. But Meghan McCain is a conservative, so she doesn't like Trump when it comes to her and her family. Everything else, totally fine. They only care when it touches them. If it doesn't touch me, go crush anyone you like. And oh, by the way, do a horrible video about what Ilhan Omar said and make it appear as if she was a fan of 9/11.
Yeah.
That's the video that Trump did and tweeted out, right? While she's getting death threats. She got death threats before that video. He knew it and he sent that out to antagonize her anyway. And Meghan McCain defends that kind of abhorrent behavior.
Right.
Why? It's not about me or my dad, so I don't care at all.
Yeah,
Classic Republican.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because look, in the past, and I'm talking about years ago, I knew Meghan McCain. I was on her show a couple of times when she had a show for Pivot, and we would have these conversations about what it's like to be a woman in the public eye. And she would be very candid about how difficult it is, what it's like to get the death threats, what it's like to have your life threatened on a regular basis simply because you're a woman in a space where women traditionally were not allowed to share their opinions and their thoughts. And to support someone in a position of power like the president, putting out that type of video on Twitter out of context, which led to more viciousness toward Representative Ilhan Omar, Meghan McCain should know better than that. But that's the thing, she has this inability to put herself in other people's shoes, even if she's experienced the type of threats that Representative Omar has experienced. And I wanna just go back to this video. This is from the conversation that happened on The View. To give you context, Sunny Hostin had just recently made her points about Representative Ilhan Omar, and she did so so incredibly well, and honestly embarrassed Meghan McCain. And immediately following that, here's what happened.
I take this very personally. I would go so far as to say I probably verge on being a Zionist as well. But I will say that I don't have family that is Jewish, but Joe Lieberman and Hadassah Lieberman are my family.
Yeah.
And I take the hate crimes rising in this country incredibly seriously, and I think what's happening in Europe is really scary. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional, but
you're right.
The idea that this is politicized, I'm really not. I was very nervous to talk about this on the show because I thought it would become politicized, and it really shouldn't be. On both sides, it should be called out.
Right.
And just because I don't technically have Jewish family that are blood related to me, it doesn't mean I don't take this as seriously, and it is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I think we all collectively as Americans on both sides, and what Ilhan Omar is saying is very scary to me, and it's very scary to a lot of people, and I don't think you have to be Jewish to recognize that.
Look, I appreciate her emotion, actually, if she's worried about anti-Semitism and wants to protect Jewish Americans. That's wonderful. And she doesn't have to be Jewish to care about that. That's great. We should all care about one another. But I think that the problem that people had was they felt a certain disingenuousness about it. And why? Well, when Trump went in front of the Republican Jewish coalition, he said, you like to buy your politicians, but you can't buy me, so you won't support me. Now that is 1,000 times more direct than Ilhan Omar replying to a tweet, it's all about the Benjamins, in reference to a song. And in reference specifically to lobbyists, not Jews. So if you're on the verge of tears about Ilhan Omar quoting a song, well, you should be apoplectic about what Trump said, let alone the fact that they chanted the Jews will not replace it in Charlottesville, and Trump said there's very fine people on that side. You should be sobbing out of control over that if you genuinely cared. Yeah. But this is what Meghan McCain is brought on television to do. Say both sides do it, and I'll take one thing that's tiny, and I'll take another thing that's gigantic, and I'll call it even. That's not the bug, that's the feature, that's why they brought her on. That's why people are concerned that those are crocodile tears. Yes. And there's something about Meghan McCain that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, because if you're sticking up for the downtrodden and the powerless, and if you're fighting against anti-Semitism, we would all be on your side, and that would be wonderful. But she has this way of shutting down a conversation. Like, I'm aggressive if I go on TV, but our side, progressive side, is almost never represented on TV, and we have to fight back to even make a case. And I'm not talking about Democrats, I'm talking about progressives, right? In her case, she represents the mainstream point of view, the establishment, the status quo point of view. But if you challenge her a little bit on conventional wisdom, she gets so snappy. And she has, like, the way she came back at Seth Meyers, like, what are you, her publicist, right?
Right.
It has a sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to make my points and you are not.
You're right.
And if you dare do that, I will shut you down.
That's exactly right. And you see it over and over again on The View. There's one final part of the story I want to quickly mention. Ben Dominick is her husband and also a notorious plagiarist who got fired from the Washington Post after working there for 3 days because he was plagiarizing. Anyway, he wanted to share his thoughts in now deleted tweets on Twitter. And he said the following: I see Seth Meyers, the untalented piece of you know what, who only has his job because he regularly gargled Lauren Michaels' testicles, went after my wife tonight with his idiotic anti-Semitic BS.
Once again, Seth Meyers, parts of his family are Jewish. And so we looked up Dominick. Like only in the Trump administrations do you have to Google whether people are Jewish, right? And it turns out Dominick's not Jewish, Meghan McCain is not Jewish, but Dominick is so concerned about Seth Meyers being anti-Semitic. No, you're concerned that your entitled wife was ever challenged on television. That's what you're concerned about.
Yes.
And you're concerned about anti-Semitism. Well, that's curious because
I have some evidence.
Your paper, The Federalist, if you can call it that, has printed some interesting articles.
Right, so let's go to graphic 44. Parker Malloy tweeted the following. Guess whose website defended the South Carolina adoption/foster agency that turned away prospective foster parents for being Jewish? If you answered Ben Dominick's The Federalist, you're right.
What happened? I thought you were concerned about anti-Semitism.
Please.
No, if you want to be anti-Semitic on issues that actually matter, like whether you can adopt kids, whether you can have the same rights as other people, great. But if you dare challenge my wife on national television, anti-Semite, that Jews an anti-Semite, Meghan McCain speaks for all Jews. Okay, then you lose us completely, because then you don't care about Jewish Americans, you only care about your own ass. And they've also printed such philosophical articles with headlines such as, pedophilia isn't the main problem with Catholic priests, homosexuality is.
Are you serious?
Yes. Okay, and here's another one. Christianity can't be stretched to endorse homosexuality. So that's what The Federalist is. Meanwhile, Meghan McCain and Ben Dominick go around pretending, and when he said the thing about gargling the testicles, he's like, oh no, we are huge fans of the LGBT community. I mean, we equate them with pedophiles, and we don't think they should have any rights, but we're huge fans of the LGBT community. There is no end to their hypocrisy.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.